Ilara ran through the dark forest, her bare feet slipping over wet roots and cold stones. Her chest heaved, lungs burning, and every sound of movement behind her made her heart spike with terror. The night was alive with whispers, the predators of her own pack hunting her for being an Omega Beta, weak and unwanted. She had been rejected, cast aside, and now hunted for the simple act of being different. The trees twisted like blackened giants, their branches clawing at the sky, blotting out the moon. The wind carried whispers that sounded like voices, sometimes her own, sometimes taunting. She pressed herself against a tree, trying to steady her shaking hands. Her fur cloak was torn, mud streaked across her cheeks, and every step she took felt heavier than the last. She had nowhere to go, no one to trust. And then, in the distance, a figure appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who owned the night itself. His presence seemed to push back the darkness, a light in the shadow. Ilara froze, unsure if this new figure was friend or foe. "You shouldn't be here alone," the man said, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made her shiver. He was one of the twin alphas, Kyle, the one known for fairness and strength. Stories said he protected the weak, though many feared his power. His golden eyes locked onto hers, steady and piercing, and she felt a strange comfort she hadn't known in weeks. I have nowhere to go," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling. Kyle stepped closer, but not too close, his presence protective, not threatening. "Then come with me. I can keep you safe." She hesitated for a heartbeat. But relief washed over her like sunlight breaking through clouds. She had no other choice. With a nod, she allowed him to lead her deeper into the forest. Every step she took with him felt like stepping into a story she had only ever dreamed of. A story where someone powerful cared enough to save her. The path they walked was narrow and winding, lit faintly by the glow of bioluminescent moss clinging to rocks and tree trunks. The air smelled of damp earth and something faintly sweet, like the scent of forgotten flowers. Ilara followed silently, watching Kale move with a grace that made him seem almost otherworldly. She noticed small details. The way his hands were steady even when navigating rough terrain. The way his eyes scanned constantly, alert for any threat. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to," Kale said after a while, breaking the silence. "But know this, you are not alone anymore." Ilara's throat tightened. No one had said such words to her in years. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that someone could care without expecting anything in return. But as they walked, a feeling of unease prickled at her spine. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. The wind carried whispers that didn't belong to the forest. And somewhere in the dark, unseen, another presence followed them. A pair of eyes that glimmered with a darkness all its own. Darian, Kale's twin, the one shrouded in rumors and fear. He was cursed, they said, dangerous, unpredictable. And now, unknown to Ilara, he watched every step she took. By the time they reached a hidden glade, the night had deepened. The clearing was small, surrounded by thick trees, and a stream ran quietly through its center. Kyle knelt beside the water, offering her a hand to help her wash the mud from her face. Hesitant, she allowed it. His touch was gentle, careful, not the rough, commanding touch of someone used to controlling others, but soft, protective. "You're safe here, for now," Kale said. Ilara looked at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of gratitude and awe. Why are you helping me?" Kale's gaze softened. "Because you deserve a chance. Because no one should be hunted for who they are. And because I could not bear to see you suffer." Ilara felt tears well up. She had been alone for so long, unwanted, And now someone strong and fearless was offering her protection. The warmth of hope bloomed in her chest for the first time in what felt like forever. But even as she let herself breathe, even as she felt the beginnings of trust, a shadow moved silently along the edge of the trees. Darian observed her, his cursed aura almost tangible in the darkness. His face was unreadable, but there was a hunger in his gaze. Not a hunger for violence, at least not entirely, something deeper, darker, and infinitely more complicated. Ilara did not see him. She could not sense the danger that lingered, wrapped in shadow. All she knew was the comfort of Kale's presence, the steadying of her fear, and the warmth that came with the sense of being protected. Night deepened, and Kale built a small fire to keep the chill at bay. The flames cast dancing shadows across the clearing, and Ilara found herself talking softly about her past. Not all of it, not yet, but enough to let someone know she existed beyond her fear. Kyle listened silently, never interrupting, only offering small nods and the occasional word of reassurance. "You are stronger than you think," he said finally, watching her carefully. "Stronger than the pack that hunted you. Stronger than the world that rejected you." Ilara felt a spark of something she had long thought extinguished. Pride, perhaps, or the first tender shoots of hope. I want to believe that," she said quietly. "You will," Kale replied. "But not all strength comes from fighting alone. Some comes from letting someone stand with you." The fire crackled, and the night seemed to settle around them. For the first time, Ilara allowed herself to relax, to feel safe. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting exhaustion wash over her. And then, just as the wind whispered through the trees, she heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible sound behind her. A shadow flitted past the edge of her vision, and a chill ran down her spine. She opened her eyes and looked around, heart hammering, but the forest seemed still. Kale noticed her unease. "What is it?" he asked, standing and scanning the darkness with eyes that missed nothing. I thought I saw something," Ilara admitted, voice trembling. Kale's expression hardened slightly, a flash of protective instinct crossing his face. "No one will touch you while I am here. Rest now. I will keep watch." Ilara nodded, but sleep was hesitant. Even in the presence of protection, the forest was alive with unseen eyes. She tried to tell herself that she was safe, that Kyle would shield her. And yet, somewhere beyond the glow of the fire, a figure lingered in the shadows. Darian watched, silent, patient, his cursed aura pressing in from the darkness. He saw her fear, her hope, and the beginnings of trust she placed in his brother. A shadow of a smile touched his lips, almost imperceptible, as he whispered to himself, "So fragile, so unaware, and yet already mine to test." Ilara stirred in her sleep, unaware that the night held more than safety. It held a choice she had yet to understand, a pull towards something forbidden and dangerous. She dreamed of warmth and shadow, of golden eyes and eyes like midnight. And when she woke, the fire had burned low, leaving only Kale's steady silhouette by the stream. But when she blinked and looked again, the night seemed different. He was gone. And in the darkness, a new presence emerged, one she could not yet name, one whose aura both terrified and mesmerized her. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a voice that was not Kale's. "I am the twin you never saw coming," it said. Ilara's heart froze. Ilara's heart thudded painfully in her chest as she backed away, her hands trembling. The forest around her seemed to close in, shadows deepening, twisting as if alive. Darian stood at the edge of the firelight, tall, powerful, and terrifying. His presence was overwhelming, an aura of darkness and sorrow that made her skin prickle, yet at the same time drew her in. You're not Kale, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Darian's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. No, he said, voice low and smooth, like a river flowing over jagged stones. I am the twin you never knew existed. I am the one they fear, the one they call cursed, and yet, here you are. Ilara's mind raced. She had trusted Kale, felt safety with him, and now she was in the hands of someone feared and shunned by everyone. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee, to escape. But the forest seemed different tonight. The shadows moved with purpose, almost protective of Darian. And as terrifying as he was, there was a strange magnetism in the way he looked at her, intense, searching, and human. "Why are you here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Darian stepped closer, and she took an involuntary step back. "I am here because you crossed my path," he said, his eyes glinting in the firelight, "and because I am curious about the one Kyle protects." Ilara's breath caught. Curiosity from a cursed twin was dangerous. She remembered the stories, how Darian had been exiled, how no one dared approach him, how his power was said to twist reality itself. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her fear. I am not Kale," she said again, her voice stronger this time. "I trusted him." "Yes, you trusted him," Darian said almost reverently, "and you should. He is remarkable, but he cannot always protect what he does not see. I see, I watch, I understand, and now I have you." Ilara's stomach churned. There was danger here, yes, but there was also something else, something she could not name. A pull she felt in her chest, a strange fascination she could not resist. Darian was dark, yes, but there was sorrow behind that darkness, loneliness, a longing she could sense even from where she stood. "I will not hurt you," he said suddenly, as if reading her thoughts. "Not unless you force me to. But I will test you. I will see who you are beneath the fear and the exhaustion. And perhaps I will show you who I truly am." Ilara's instincts told her to flee. Her heart told her to stay. She had never felt so torn. But exhaustion, both physical and emotional, kept her rooted. She had been hunted, abandoned, and rejected for so long that even the threat of Darian felt oddly comforting in its honesty. For hours they walked through the shadows of the forest. Darian led her to a hidden glade, a place older than the oldest trees, where sunlight filtered faintly through the thick canopy even at night. Strange, luminescent flowers glowed softly, casting a gentle light. The air smelled of rain, earth, and something faintly sweet, almost like hope. "Why here?" Ilara asked, looking around. "This place is mine, or at least—" "It has belonged to me for a long time," Darian said. "No one dares enter. Here you can be yourself, or at least the part of yourself that survives." Ilara let herself take in the beauty of the place. It was serene, yet it hummed with power. The shadows seemed alive, whispering secrets she could not fully understand. She felt a strange sense of peace for a moment, though every nerve in her body remained alert. Darian watched her quietly, his dark eyes softening slightly. "You are brave," he said. "Brave to trust, brave to survive, brave to look at me and not scream." I don't know what to do," Ilara admitted, voice trembling. "I trusted Kale, and now I don't know who you are or what you want from me." Darian's expression was unreadable, yet his voice carried something more human than she expected. "I want to see you as you are, not as the world sees you, not as Kale sees you, only you." Ilara's heart tightened. There was danger in his words, yes, but also honesty. Kale had protected her, saved her life, but Darian saw deeper, in a way that was unsettling yet magnetic. She wanted to resist, to run, but part of her wanted to understand him, to see the truth behind the curse. Over the next few days, Darian tested her in small ways, challenges that were not violent, but mental and emotional. He asked questions that forced her to think about who she was, what she feared, and what she desired. He led her through exercises of survival, teaching her to move silently through the forest, to trust her instincts, to confront the shadows within herself. Ilara began to see the complexity of Darian. The stories of a cursed twin were true in some ways, the shadows that clung to him, the whispers that seemed to follow him, but he was also intelligent, compassionate in small, unexpected ways, and fiercely protective of what he cared about. She began to feel a connection she did not understand, a pull that conflicted with her loyalty to Kale and her fear of Darian's reputation. At night, when the forest was quiet, Darian would sit near her, speaking softly about the past, about the curse, about the world that had rejected him. Ilara listened, fascinated. She saw glimpses of a man shaped by loss, fear, and exile, a man who longed for understanding, for love, for redemption. And she began to wonder if even the cursed could be saved. But the pull of Kale remained in her mind. She thought of his golden eyes, his steadying presence, his promise of protection. She wondered if she had betrayed him simply by being near Darian, by feeling drawn to him. Guilt gnawed at her even as fascination grew, leaving her heart in turmoil. One night, Darian approached her more closely than ever before. His voice was a low murmur, almost hypnotic. "I could bind you to me, you know," he said, "a mark that would ensure you could never leave. But I do not wish to force you. I wish to see if your heart chooses me freely." Ilara's breath caught. The thought terrified her, yet there was an undeniable allure in his words. To be bound, but to be chosen willingly. Could she trust herself to understand her own heart? You wouldn't force me?" she asked, voice shaking. Darian shook his head slowly. "No, I do not need to. I am patient. I have waited far too long to take what is given unwillingly. But I will see your choices, and I will see your courage, and perhaps I will see love where others see only fear." Ilara's thoughts were a whirlwind. She had trusted Kale. She had been saved by him. And yet here in the forest, in the quiet glow of strange flowers and luminescent moss, she felt a connection to Darian that was undeniable. It was dangerous, yes. It was forbidden. But it was real. The next morning, Kale appeared at the edge of the forest, his face a mix of relief and fear. "Ilara," he called, rushing forward. "I have searched everywhere for you." Ilara turned, heart pounding. She wanted to run to him, to feel safe again. But she also felt the lingering presence of Darian in her thoughts, the pull of the shadows, the intensity of the cursed twin's gaze in her mind. She was torn, caught between two powerful forces, each commanding a piece of her heart. Darian emerged from the shadows silently, standing beside her without a sound. His presence was like a shadow falling over the sunlight, both comforting and terrifying. "Kyle," he said quietly, almost regretfully, "you found her, but she is not yours to claim, not yet. And perhaps she will never be." Kale's jaw tightened. "Darian, leave her be. You cannot claim what is not yours." Darian's gaze shifted to Ilara. "I claim nothing she does not choose to give," he said. "But she is mine to test, and she is already entwined with me in ways even she does not understand." Ilara's heart raced. The conflict between the twins, the one who saved her and the one who haunted her, was now unavoidable. Her fate, her heart, and her very sense of self were at the mercy of two beings whose power could shape the world itself. And in that moment, she realized the truth. Survival was not enough. She must choose, not just who she trusted, but who she could love, who could see the real her, and who could redeem what had been broken. Her chest tightened as the forest seemed to hold its breath. The next step she took would not just change her life. It would change the lives of the two twin alphas who now shared her fate, bound together by something far older, far darker, and far more powerful than any curse she had ever known. Ilara's eyes met Darian's, then Kale's, and she whispered to herself, "How can one heart survive between two forces so powerful, so different, so dangerous?" The forest was silent except for the soft rustle of leaves in the cold morning wind. Ilara stood between the two twins, Kale and Darian, the weight of the night pressing down on her chest like stones. She could feel their power radiating around her, Kale's steady warmth and Darian's shadowed intensity, two forces pulling her in opposite directions. Kale's golden eyes held concern and something deeper, a quiet longing that tugged at her heart. "Ilara," he said, voice low, "you do not have to face this alone. I can protect you. Always." Darian's dark gaze was steady, almost magnetic. "Protection is not always what a heart needs," he murmured. "Sometimes survival comes from understanding, and sometimes love can heal the deepest wounds." Ilara's thoughts swirled like the wind around the trees. For weeks, she had been running, hiding, learning to survive in a world that had rejected her. Kyle had saved her life, shown her safety and trust. Darian had shown her the depth of power, the pull of darkness, and the fragile hope hidden beneath it. She realized now that the choice was not only about loyalty, it was about who could see her completely, who could guide her toward her own strength, and who could redeem not just her heart, but the brokenness in the world around them. Kale stepped closer, one hand reaching out to her. "I will not lie," he said. "I have longed for this moment since I first saw you running, alone and frightened. I want to be the one who stands by you. But I cannot force your heart." Ilara's gaze shifted to Darian. His presence was intense, almost suffocating, yet there was an honesty in his eyes that she could not ignore. I don't know," she admitted. "I have never felt anything like this. You both mean something to me in different ways. I am afraid of making the wrong choice." Darian nodded slowly. "Fear is natural, but fear should not bind you. You are not a prize to be won, Ilara. You are a soul, and your heart must speak its truth." The forest seemed to listen. The trees leaned closer, the wind slowed, and even the shadows held their breath. Ilara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, letting the emotions she had pushed aside for so long rise to the surface. She thought of Kale's steady protection, the warmth and trust he offered without question. She thought of Darian's depth, the darkness tempered by vulnerability, and the courage it had taken for him to reveal his truth to her. Her heart ached with the impossibility of it all, yet clarity began to emerge. She could not ignore the pull she felt toward Darian, nor could she deny the gratitude and admiration she felt for Kale. But she realized that love and survival was not about choosing the easier path or the safer hand. It was about choosing authenticity, connection, and courage. Before she could speak, a sudden disturbance rippled through the glade. Shadows moved unnaturally, the wind howled, and the forest seemed to darken. Darian stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Kale's body tensed, muscles coiled like a spring ready to release. "You must face it," Darian said quietly, his hand brushing hers as if to lend strength. "The curse that follows me, it has been drawn to you, but it can be broken." Ilara's eyes widened. "The curse?" Kyle stepped closer, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "It is the reason Darian was exiled," he explained. The same darkness that surrounds him can harm those he loves if left unchecked. But together, we can end it, if you trust us. Ilara felt the weight of the moment settle over her. Fear and desire, loyalty and temptation, hope and uncertainty, everything she had felt in the past weeks had led to this. She took a deep breath and looked at both twins, seeing them not just as alphas, not just as legends of power, but as men shaped by loss, love, and longing. I trust you, she said finally. Both of you. I will face this together. Darian's eyes softened for a moment and Cale's stance relaxed, relief washing over his features. They turned together, leading her toward the center of the glade where the shadows seemed darkest. The curse, a swirling mass of darkness and whispers, loomed ahead. Its form was shifting, almost alive, tendrils of black mist reaching toward them as if sensing weakness. "Focus on your bond," Kyle instructed, his voice calm but commanding. "Ilara, you must let your courage and heart guide you. Darian, you must channel your strength, but not your fear." Ilara stepped forward, hand in hand with both twins. She felt Cale's warmth on one side, Darian's shadowed intensity on the other, and something remarkable happened. The darkness recoiled slightly, as if uncertain how to approach three hearts united. She concentrated on her own strength, the courage that had carried her through so many nights alone, and the hope that she could choose her own destiny. Darian and Cale mirrored her focus, their combined energy forming a shield of light and shadow, warmth and resolve. The curse surged, testing them, whispering doubt, fear, and regret. But Ilara's heart remained steady, a beacon in the tempest. "Now!" Darian shouted, his voice echoing through the glade. Cale's golden eyes flared with light, and together they directed their combined power through her. The curse screamed, a sound that rattled the trees and made the ground tremble. Shadows twisted and writhed, trying to escape, but the force of unity and trust, courage and love held them at bay. Ilara poured every ounce of determination into the moment, and finally, with a flash of blinding light, the darkness shattered, dissipating into nothingness. When the light faded, the glade was calm, peaceful, the shadows receding completely. Ilara sank to her knees, trembling with exhaustion and awe. Cale and Darian knelt beside her, their hands steadying her, their eyes full of relief and admiration. "You did it," Cale said softly, his golden gaze meeting hers. "You faced the darkness, and it could not stand against you." Darian's dark eyes held a mixture of pride and something softer, love, perhaps, or the beginning of healing. "You did not just survive," he said quietly. "You transformed the curse itself. You have the power to change everything, even hearts bound by fear and shadow." Ilara looked between them, the weight of the past weeks lifting slowly from her shoulders. She realized now that the power of choice, courage, and compassion had not only saved her, it had begun to redeem them all. Kyle's unwavering protection, Darian's haunted intensity, and her own resilience had formed a bond that could not be broken by fear or legend. For the first time, she understood the depth of connection between the twins. It was not only rivalry, it was balance, reflection, and recognition of their true selves. And she, too, had found her place within that balance, not as a prize, but as a force of her own. Cale extended his hand toward her. "Ilara, will you stand with us, not just in battle, but in life? As equals, as allies, as—" He faltered slightly, emotion flickering across his face. "As someone I can trust completely." Ilara's gaze shifted to Darian. His hand hovered near hers, his expression open, vulnerable in a way few had ever seen. "And you?" she asked softly. Darian's lips curved into a faint, almost shy smile. "I will not force your choice," he said, "but I will stand beside you as you stand beside yourself. I will see you, all of you, and respect the courage it took to reach this moment." Ilara took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the glade, the warmth of Kale, and the depth of Darien. She realized she could no longer think in terms of right or wrong, fear or safety. She could only feel, trust, and choose the path that honored her own heart. Slowly, she reached out, taking both their hands. The warmth of Kale's strength and the shadowed intensity of Darien's presence flowed through her, grounding her, empowering her. For the first time in her life, she felt whole, not because she had been saved, but because she had chosen, because she had faced fear, and because she had embraced her own courage and desire. The forest seemed to sigh, the shadows retreating, the wind carrying the whispers of renewal. The curse was gone, but its lesson remained. Love, trust, and courage could heal even the deepest wounds, and even the most feared hearts could be redeemed. Ilara looked at the twins, seeing them fully for the first time, not as separate forces, not as legend or curse, but as men who had been shaped by pain, who had loved, and who had learned to trust. She smiled, softly, finally at peace. Kale's eyes softened, Darien's gaze lingered, and together they walked forward, the three of them stepping into the light of dawn. The forest behind them whispered of endings and beginnings. The world before them shimmered with promise, and Ilara, once a hunted Omega Beta, now a force of courage and choice, understood that some bonds could not be broken, not by fear, curse, or legend, but only strengthened by love, trust, and redemption.